welcome, everyone. How are you, beautiful people? Happy Women's History Month. Happy Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. It is me, Dr. Sylvia Boley, your integrative bariatrician specializing in transformative body, mind, spirit, weight loss through changing your relationship with food. And I am super excited about today's show. I am here. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yes, we can hear you. Just your
You can
screen.
hear me? Okay, because I'm frozen on my end, but I'm going to
Yes.
keep talking. Well, look, I'm so excited about today's show. I'm here with Dr. Pascale White. She is my good friend from medical school. So I'm going to try not to act a fool and remember that I'm in formation and we are doctors. And but this is our safe space. And as you come on in, please let me know where you're checking in from. We have a lot of familiar people who are usually coming in. Okay, hey Cynthia, welcome back. And so so here we talk about not just the facts behind weight loss and health and how to lose it and keep it off, but also the feelings. How do you embrace yourself in the process? And so we are today are going to be talking about something that can be kind of heavy, which is colorectal cancer or colon cancer, but we're going to try to keep it light. Okay, so as we go through today, can you just make sure that you feel free to ask your questions, feel free to make your comments. We are here for you today. So as I mentioned, Dr. White, she's not just my fabulous friend, she is also a board certified gastroenterologist, associate professor at Mount Sinai, and a founding member of the the Association of Black Gastroenterologists and Hepatologists. So Pascale or Dr. White, thanks again for being here. Can you say hi to our guests and feel free to add anything to the intro that you want to?
Yes, thank you so much, Sylvia, for having me. I really appreciate your platform and everyone who's joining today. It is just such an important time to discuss these issues with colon cancer. As you know, it's been affecting younger people these days. And so I'm happy to be here, super excited to talk to you again. I think the last time we spoke with each other was during the pandemic, and I was at home and you were at home. And so the world looks a little different to us now, but just the same, wonderful vibe. So thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And at some point, I hope I unfreeze. Like, why do camera always freeze when you're doing something awkward with your face? Like, whatever. Okay. So at some point, like when you're talking, I'm gonna like ease out of the studio and come back in. It is always something. But you know what, Satan? We're gonna have this conversation today.
Not
We're gonna have
today.
this conversation.
Not today. Nothing's going to get in our way about this. This is the last day of March, last day of Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month. And
Yes.
we are here just to really hone it in because April is minority health month. So we are just
Yes.
kind of swooping in from Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month right into Minority Health Month. So we're excited.
And it's so important, that we talk about it. So you mentioned the last time we got together to do a live about colon cancer and the intersection with health and prevention. That was right when Chadwick Boseman passed away.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I
that hit us hard. It was in the pandemic and then no one was expecting it, right? Because he wasn't public about his medical condition. And two, as Black people, we're at higher risk for dying of colon cancer, but we often don't want to talk about it. And I love the fact, like, I'm such a nerd, y'all, and a fangirl. Like, I'm like, you need my husband calls me a professional hype woman, but like last night, I was like watching Pascale's Grand Rounds that she did. This is Dr. White's Grand Rounds, and she talks like she went in hard on how colorectal cancer disproportionately affects Black people and why. So that's actually where I wanted to start this conversation. So, how common is colon cancer in the Black community? And actually, what I'm going to actually ask the audience to do, go ahead and type in if you know somebody. You don't have to say their name unless you want to pay them respect. But if you know someone who's been impacted by colon cancer, because I know personally in my family, I have, and I've had close friends who have, and you really, unfortunately, you don't hear them talk about it until it's too till it's like near the end, right? So how common is colon cancer in the Black community, and why does colon cancer impact the Black community differently?
Those are great questions. I'm gonna just kind of reel it back in and just talk and just kind of start from like almost like to the basics where
Mhm,
colon cancer includes the rectum. So we say colorectal
mhm.
cancer, and that's basically your large intestine. And these can form, polyps or growths on the lining of your intestines that can ultimately lead to cancer. And so when you're talking about catching colon cancer early or preventing on the Black community, I mean, African Americans are 20% more likely to be diagnosed with colorectal cancer and 40% more likely to die from it more than any other groups. So we have the highest incidence, we have the highest mortality, we have the lowest survival, and we actually don't really know exactly why that's the case. But what we do know is that we are not being screened as much as other ethnic groups. And so when you're talking about screening, you're talking about looking for these polyps or growths or even microscopic blood in the stool through other types of screening tests in order for us to catch these things before they become cancer. And so when we think about what we can do and how we can prevent in our community, it's about awareness, it's about knowledge. And I talk a lot about the barriers to screening and what holds us back as a community, as a people, from screening ourselves, our family members for these diseases and talking about it. Because, again, another piece of this is also family history. What runs in our families can have us at an increased risk for having these types of diseases like colorectal cancer. And not talking about it is probably doing ourselves the most disservice because we can actually catch these things so much earlier than we are with regular average risk screening. And so for average risk screening, we're talking about 45. These rules have changed. These guidelines have changed. So before it was 50 for everyone except for African Americans, where back in 2009, the American College of Gastroenterology said, actually, African Americans are a high risk group. And so we should be screening them at 45 years of age. And this was back in 2009. And I'm sure a lot of people haven't heard about that. And so, again, increasing knowledge, increasing awareness that now it's 45 for all, whether you're Black, white, Asian, Latinx, everything is 45 for average risk people. Now is the time to really get ourselves out there to get screened at this age because colon cancer is happening in younger and younger people.
Yeah, Pascal, that is so good, and you raised so many great points in there. Get that screening early. And down in the comments, Cassandra Arnold, thank you so much for sharing, sis, and
Yes.
welcome back. She shared that her husband died from colon cancer at age 25. So can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about like screening earlier? What are some indications that people even before 45, because he might not have known to go for a colonoscopy, and thank
Yeah.
you so much for sharing, Cassandra, because this is a great, and sorry for your loss, because this is a great point that we can make. So,
Yes.
how do you know who gets screened earlier, and maybe what are some signs that you need to go in?
Yeah. So Cassandra, again, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, condolences for the loss of your husband. 25 is an absolute, young age to die from colon cancer. We're learning that about half of the people who are diagnosed with colon cancer younger than age 50, half of them don't even have a family history. So they're coming in without a family history with, colon cancer. So one of the risk factors that we actually want to check is family history because 50% of people actually would have a family history who are coming in with colon cancers at early onset. And so, patients who have family members, first degree family members, moms, dads, sisters, brothers. So Cassandra, if your husband had, siblings, they honestly are gonna have to look out for colon cancer, way earlier than 45. And we usually say 10 years from the time that person was diagnosed. So for example, if mom was diagnosed at the age of 40 with colon cancer, her children would get screened at the age of 30, not 45, because they are at an increased risk. So it's 10 years younger than that. So anyone who has that family history, please talk to your doctor. Please talk to your care providers in order to figure out when is the optimal time to be screened. Some people are born with genetics that predispose them to get colon cancer. And so these genetic syndromes would lead one to get a closer monitoring for colon cancer before the age of 45. We had two children. Okay, Cassandra's putting in the chat she had two children. So yeah, your children would definitely need to at least go in for genetic testing. Your husband, if your husband had genetic testing on the cancer itself, then your providers will be able to see if he had an increased risk for that, and if that risk would be passed down to your children in order for them to determine what the optimal time is for your children to get screened for colon cancer, because they are at an increased risk. And if they're in their 30s now, I would hope that they would have already at least spoken to their providers in order for them to start their screening for colon cancer.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. That is so helpful, Dr. White. And, you know, sorry, I know we're talking seriously. I still get tripped out calling you Dr. White.
Just call me Pascale, Sylvia.
No, no, girl, I want to give you your flowers. We just had Dr. Day yesterday, but y'all, like, you don't want to know. All right, I'm sorry. We're talking serious stuff here. But seriously, I wanted to also just let's talk a little bit about the fear behind it. I know that's not on the notes because some of the reason why people don't, and I have good friends who's I know their parents have passed from colon cancer, and I asked them, I said, have you gotten early screening because you're about at that age now? And there is a lot of fear around the screening. And one of the things you talked about was fear. You talked about the role of faith and false beliefs. So can you just share a little bit about that? Because if we get nothing out of this talk, I really want people to leave here doing what works best for them and not being led by fear, because fear will keep us from doing a lot of positive things we need to do.
100%. I talk to my patients all the time. I'm like, you know, you're going to hear something, right? You want to hear good news before bad news. So whatever fear that you
Mm,
have, if you have a fear of hearing bad news, waiting on it is not just, it's not going to make it better. So it's actually going to make it worse in terms of like if something's actually happening to you and going on. I think the fear factor is a huge barrier, but a lot of people think that they can only get screened with one type of test. Everyone hears about
mm.
colonoscopy, everyone hears about anesthesia. I'm not trying to put anyone's business out there, but I have a very close person close to me who underwent a colonoscopy, and the biggest thing for that person was anesthesia. And
Mhm.
so just making sure that they're comfortable with the fact that you'll be asleep, but it's a quick sleep. It's a light sleep actually. After 2 minutes, you're awake and talking, and I can talk to you about your findings. But
Can I
fear
say
is
something
real.
about the anesthesia, Pascal?
Yeah, yeah.
Because I had to get a procedure. I got an endoscopy actually, and I had
Okay,
anesthesia.
okay.
Girl, best sleep ever. I was like, that's why MJ wanted those propofol dreams. I do not condone that. I will not be prescribing propofol, but I still sometimes have flashback to those cerulean blue beaches. Okay, like it was. So if you're worried about anesthesia, you have some very capable anesthesiologists that will keep you alive. And let me assure you, it is the best sleep you will
That's
ever get.
That's what I
Yes.
hear. That's what I hear. I haven't had to go through it myself, but my patients are very happy. But it is a great sleep. It is a great nap. I always tell my patients, and I'm always playing like 90s R&B, and they're like, Dr. White, you have the best music. I'm like, you're gonna have a great nap. Tell me where you were, where'd you go on vacation? It's
Oh, it's
great,
so
right?
good.
But the best feeling is waking up and me saying to the patient, you had no polyps. I can see you in 10 years, bye, see you later, unless you have a problem, or I'll see you in 5 years, or you know what, we found something, we caught it early, and now you won't ever develop that colon cancer from that polyp is gone. Now we just got to make sure other polyps don't grow back. So that also is one of the best news. And obviously, if I find something that's terrible, it's a bad day, but at least I found it, we can catch it early. Because if you catch colon cancer at stage 1, you have
Mhm.
about a 94% survival rate. If you catch it, at
94.
stage 4, you have about 11% survival rate. So, that's a big difference, 94% to 11%. Like, I'd hedge my bets and say, you know what, I'm more afraid of you catching it late. Let's just catch it and deal with it now. But that's a fear, right? That's a fear that holds us back, that says, I could pray it away, or, you know what, I'm just going
Mhm.
to take this over the counter herbal medication. I'm just like, that's not the right move. Like, you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you you go in
You
and
can
go and
do
look.
both. You can do all of it together,
All
and I feel like,
I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not.
God.
I'm not like saying herbal medicines don't work. I'm of Haitian descent. I take my when I have a stomach ache, I don't call my friends. I call my mom. Like, Mom, what should I do? I should know, right? So at the end of the day, you do what works for you and what makes you feel comfortable. But please understand that there is a science behind it as well, and we are here to clearly prevent cancers. This is one of the things where you can prevent it from happening to you. Why not, overcome that little, that barrier for you to at least get screened, whether it's colonoscopy or whether it's a stool test. We don't talk about stool tests
Yeah,
more.
please tell us more, especially that little cute white one that they have the commercial for, the Cologuard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes.
with the
So
little
I
cute
use,
veins
so
there.
I will say stool DNA, because we don't use
Mhm.
liquid brand names, but yes, there is this stool fit test that combines DNA with it to detect microscopic blood in the stool and our DNA cells. And so when it comes back positive, you're not sure if it's because they detect one or the other. It's just positive, then you have to go through a colonoscopy. But clearly, there are tests that you can do from home. You don't have to take off from work. You don't need anesthesia to submit a stool test to your provider in order for them to check to see if there's anything that is suspicious for possible cancer. And if that comes back positive, colonoscopy. And if it doesn't, then you buy yourself 3 years with that little cute guy on the box, your stool DNA, or you buy yourself every year if you just do a regular FIT test, and that's a fecal immunochemical test that just looks for microscopic human blood in the stool.
Okay. Girl, you said it so fast, like, because so a bit
FIT
so just
test.
to check in with the audience, are y'all following this? Are we saying anything you didn't know? Is this good information? Like, let us know if there's something more that you need to know. So far, the Dr. White has dropped some knowledge on us, right? She talks about how we as Black people, we are more likely to have more aggressive cancer being diagnosed later because we're not getting screened adequately. So we've talked about when you start that screening, 45 if you're at average risk. And then it's also important to talk to your family, like Cassandra here. Thanks so much for sharing, sis, whose husband died at 25 years old. Her kids need to be checked sooner than that, and usually 10 years right before the
Yeah.
first before that the age of the death of that person. So making sure that you know your family history, and we're talking about things because a lot of times in our families we don't talk about what conditions are there, and then overcoming the fear by having, but I think the trust factor is so important as well, like having doctors that look like you, that you can trust them and talk to them about it. And then she offered up, if you don't want to have propofol dreams, which I recommend. If you don't have propofol dreams with the regular colonoscopy, you can do the stool DNA testing, which is that cute little dancing guy, the Cologuard box. I don't know why I keep doing that. That's why I'm not on TikTok. And then you could also do a FIT, which is the stool card that your doctor might do, and you have to do that every year. And if any of those tests come back positive, then you need to still get a colonoscopy, which is why it's the gold standard test. So, yeah, so we really do want you to make sure this is valuable, but I know what they want to know. And I know we have about probably 10 minutes. Okay, so Cassandra said, great info, overdue because they will not allow me to get an Uber to return home. Oh, wow. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that, Pascal.
So it really is one of the biggest barriers, I think, people have, which is they may not have an escort. So if you're going to
Mm,
get propofol or any type of anesthesia, there are some types of state laws that prevent you from just leaving on your own. You have to have an escort out of the ambulatory surgery center or wherever you're having a procedure done. And so, yeah, we can't just put you in an Uber because, yeah, you're going to be awake and you're going to be fine. But sometimes, you may or may not have a reaction to it later, and you're not going to be with someone who's going to, get
mm.
the endoscopy suite. So that is a huge barrier. I'm not sure
Hmm.
if there are other ways in your institutions that can find a way around it. Sometimes they have like medical escorts or people who can, honestly, not to endorse it, but to build a business model. Like, what's the business
Girl, I
model?
was thinking the same thing. I was like trying to say information. I told you, I was thinking, I was like, Some of y'all listening, we came and gave y'all some all this entrepreneurship during the pandemic. You need to start a medical escort business. That's who knew?
You
Yeah,
know,
I want to go with an
it's a
escort though.
huge.
Can we call it chaperone? I don't like
You can
this.
call Chevron.
Okay, all
We
right.
can call it whatever you want, but it's just it's just the legality of having someone undergoing a seizure and not having
Yeah,
someone to escort them out of the endoscopy suite. So um yeah, I haven't figured it out. Maybe I will in the next couple years, but we'll see.
I like that. You
Yeah.
better patent that idea, or somebody better take it for Dr. White real quick. But no, it would be, but I wonder even like thinking of care.com or hiring a nurse for a day. But I know all of those are expensive. Okay, yeah. So look, Lauraville says she agrees. Great idea for Lauraville. This is your blessing in disguise. You can be the one to start it, girl. All right, we totally digress. Okay, Dr. White, I know we got a hard stop at
Uh-huh.
12:35. So let's get over
Yeah.
to people. Everybody, you mentioned the herbs, the supplements, all of that stuff.
Mhm.
So look, don't start shaking your head. We're gonna talk about some
I don't.
lifestyle factors
I
first.
agree. I mean, the lifestyle factor is the biggest thing. Let's focus on what
Let's
we
start
can
with
do
the data. Let's
to
nerd out
prevent.
a little bit. Let's start with the stuff
Okay.
that's evidence based. Since
Yes.
we're doctors, right?
Yes.
Ooh, Laura said we get 10% of the proceeds. Look, BDO is in here being messy. Okay, she has to agree first. Okay. So all right, so let's talk about the evidence. So really we want
Yeah.
to always, hopefully prevention is helpful, and even though like we said, you may need our medical treatments, you may need to have some sort of intervention. I think in whatever you're doing, and that's the embrace you approach, in whatever you're doing,
Yes.
wellness, lifestyle is at the foundation. And there are some things that have been proven to reduce your risk of colon cancer. So let's talk about those a
Yes.
little bit.
So first thing is smoking. Obviously, smoking
Mm.
everything. So not
What kind of
smoking is
smoking for the people in the streets?
everything. Vaping, smoking, marijuana. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're
Okay.
smoking, it's not a good
Eating?
thing. Yeah.
Say it again, Dr. White, for the
I
people in
don't
the
have
back.
evidence specifically on marijuana, but all smoking is bad smoking for me. It's like being
Mm.
half pregnant. It's like no, you're pregnant and you smoking, you don't, right? So you're smoking, right? So that increases your risk. You like to talk about like diet, like so your processed meats, your
Yes.
sausages, your bacon, your red meat, steak. These should be things that you eat rarely. My daughter calls it sometimes foods. It's not all the
I
time
like
foods. It's
that.
foods that you should eat in moderation. Then obviously obesity is also
Mhm.
a factor here as well in terms of what it does to your inflammatory state and really predisposing patients to a lot of abnormal cell growth and colon cancer risk. So these are things that we call modifiable. Like we can do something about that. There are things that you can't do anything about. I can't modify the fact that I'm Black. I can't modify that my family history. But there's things that I can do about it. I want to do something about it, and that's basically a short list of things that we should focus on. And exercise, right? Getting more active, being active in general helps us to keep our weight down, and obviously is for better health overall.
I love that. Now, it's funny because this chat's real quiet today. So, did you guys know? She called us out. She said processed meats, like the WHO, the World Health Organization, they made this list of carcinogenic foods. So, your hot dogs, your
Mhm.
salted pork, ham hocks, all of those things. There were like 11 of them. I'm
Mhm.
even scared to say this other one, Pascal, because we're going to start a riot.
What was it?
Bacon
Oh,
on the list. Yes, that was like someone said, "Girl, bye." Bacon was on
I
the
like it.
list. Yes. So, but and again, we try to focus on moderation here. But so the goal is to reduce the amount. If you're eating it every day, to try
Yeah.
to reduce the amount. at least to every other day, every 2 days, and eventually get to where it's less than once a week. And while you're reducing, never take stuff away without increasing things, because also increasing your vegetables, increasing your fiber intake, that's also helpful. Can you tell us a little bit about fiber? Because that's something most Americans are getting too little fiber. And again, higher fiber intake is associated with decreased risk of colon cancer.
Yeah. So when you're talking about fiber, there's many different types of fiber. I can go into a whole situation with fiber, but essentially, like,
So
you
give us a
know,
simple doc.
there's the fibers that we usually know are your vegetables, right? Your greens, things that will, increase and cause bowel regulation in a lot of my older elderly patients. These are things that we want you to focus on. And so, Sylvia, you do such a great job with showing little cooking tutorials and how to make things fun and cute and colorful, like all these colors in your salad. Like that's what we're talking about. The type of fiber that we want to increase. Like so sweet potatoes, those are like a non-green type of high fiber food that I always tell my patients. If you don't like kale, then try sweet potatoes instead of white potatoes, things like that. But Sylvia, you would talk a little bit more about that part of things because you're the expert on obesity. But fiber is good for your health, obviously, and for bowel regulation and making sure that you're getting a balanced meal. Like there's so many people here who live in food deserts, and it's not easy to find anything green. I there's food deserts here in New York City,
Mm.
and you're like, wow, there's not this. We take farmers markets for granted, right? But there's some people who don't live in areas that have a lot of high fiber foods, and so definitely making the effort to find other alternatives to that is also key.
My grandma used to use Metamucil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Just,
added it
just do
that
it.
way
Just
too.
do
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So the goal is you want to get 25 to 30 grams of fiber from your food per day. And most people are not getting that. We in average in the United States is about 15 grams. So like you
Hmm.
said, add in those green leafy vegetables. I try to put something green on every plate. You can use
Not
things,
parsley.
huh? No.
Not parsley.
So that so what we call those cruciferous vegetables, or like spinach, kale, all of
Mhm.
those will help as well. And eating like brown rice in particular. Now I see Cassandra. So two things. So all right, so look at checking the chat here. Lauraville said pork bacon or all bacon. So they just said bacon in the
Mhm.
WHO. I presumed it was pork. I know I'm a turkey bacon person myself. Kids love it. And we do eat that about 2 times a week. So yes, but it just said bacon. And then Cassandra asks, no soul food. And this is a hot topic, right? Because a lot of times when we talk about like healthy eating or improving lifestyle, people feel culturally attacked, right? Like, oh my gosh, I can't eat what I grew up eating. But I think one of the movements there is reclaiming what we call soul food. Because if you look even traditionally before our African American or Black American, like our Black food, like food from the diaspora, the African diaspora. I grew up in a family of restaurateurs, and I'm Liberian in descent. But where like our food actually started out really healthy before it became synonymous with a lot of processed food. So in many, like before we ate a lot of vegetables and we ate a lot of rice. There's actually a great like scholar, Dr. Jessica Harris, who wrote a book, High on a Hog, who
Mhm.
talks about the diaspora of how we got modern day soul food. But what we call soul food today wasn't always our traditional food. So it is really about reclaiming it, and we can do a whole show on this. I've done some talks on Clubhouse about it and going in detail about it. But we can it's about reclaiming what we call soul food. But I do not believe that you can't eat the foods that you are culturally, like there was a point where we were putting everybody on a Mediterranean diet. I'm like, hello, I'm from Decatur, like I'm not from Mediterranean, like what am I supposed to eat, like, right? So we need to contextualize food. Stop laughing at me. You know what I mean? But no, seriously, right? We need to contextualize food for the people that we're giving food to. Like, we can't put everybody on the Mediterranean diet, because to the point that if that's not familiar with you, you may not know what to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. Again, a lot of the things that we prescribe for people, like for example, the FODMAP side are things for irritable bowel syndrome. I'm
Mhm.
looking at this, and I'm like, I don't, where does plantains fall on this list? Where does,
Yeah,
certain types of beans fall on this list that we use, in Haiti or different areas? So it definitely has to have some form of a cultural component to it. And I think again, that's also a great idea for a business, right? In terms of focusing on the population with which you are which you're dealing with, and then say, hey, how can I make this a little bit more customizable to you? How can I make this more applicable to you in your everyday life, which I think is important, especially when you're treating patients with either chronic disease or patients who want to have like a long lasting lifestyle change. Like, how long am I going to last on this Mediterranean diet when I go to my mama's house on Saturday and she's cooking, her traditional
exactly.
Sunday Haitian meal? How can I make smarter food choices in that manner and still, maintain my lifestyle commitment?
And that's something I should give a plug because I'm on the board of Obesity Medicine Association. And so one of the initiatives in the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Committee is that we are making culturally tailored guidelines. I cannot deal with producer Ellis today. He's wilding, y'all. He's put Italy and Alabama. Yes. Italian. Like when I'm from Georgia, so like we used to say it wasn't Italian, it was Italian. Italian dressing. So anyhow, Dr. White has to get out of here, y'all. But we have had an amazing hour. It hasn't even been an hour, 30 minutes, half hour. We have had an amazing time just really, really talking about how colorectal cancer affects us as Black people disproportionately. And hopefully in this hour, we have helped you to release some of the fear of getting screened, of talking to your family about it, and we've left you with some tips of some practical things that you can do. So I want you, as Dr. White gives us her closing thought, I'm going to yield my mindset shift to her real quick because I know she has to get out of here. I want you to write down what your top takeaway is. The whole point of Embrace You, this show, is that it is about you. That's why it's called Embrace You. So, what are you going to embrace and take away from here today? What's something that you can do regarding improving and preventing your risk of colorectal cancer? All right, Dr. White, take it away with what you want to leave the people with. If you
All
could say
right.
something that you're always telling all your patients, what you want to tell us.
Okay, so number one, colon cancer screening starts at 45 years old. So 45 is the new 50. Okay.
Mm.
Number two, talk to your family about family history. Know your risk. So you want to make sure that is 45 the real age because it's average risk, or do you have to get screened earlier for colorectal cancer? And number three is modify when you can. Okay, food, as Dr. Bowley likes to say, food is medicine, right? You want to optimize lifestyle factors. You want to reduce or eliminate processed meat, make them sometimes foods, not all the time foods. And again, just kind of, modify your risk factors wherever you can.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. And thank you so very much,
Thanks for
sis,
having me.
for
This was so
being
fun.
here. I'm so happy. And we behaved ourselves,
We
kind
did. We did
of.
good. We did good. We did real good today.
Exactly. So please tell people how they can find you, and then I'll do my outro as well. So just go ahead if people want to connect with you, because you are practicing right in New York if they're
Yeah.
looking for a doctor that gets it.
So I'm here at Mount Sinai Icahn School of Medicine here in Upper East Side of Manhattan on the border of East Harlem. So you come find me there. I'm on Twitter at Pascale White 1. And also, just a plug in for the Association of Black Gastroenterologists and Hepatologists. I co-founded this with, 10 of my closest Black gastroenterologists from around the country. So you can find us at blackingastro.org.
Yes, I love that. That's an amazing resource. Thank you so much once again. And I love these takeaways that I'm seeing. Please use that Cologuard. Yes. So the link about the food choices, I'll make sure I have that in. and then also the choose barley. All right, let me. I'll respond to all of y'all. All right. So once again, thank you for being here for Embrace You Hot Topics and Weight Loss. I'm Dr. Sylvia, your integrative bariatrician specializing in transformative body, mind, spirit, weight loss. So, and reminding you that there is no one size fits all way to do this. So you need to embrace and personalize what works for you. You can connect with me on all social media platforms at EmbraceUMD. And you can also visit my website, www.embraceyouweightloss.com. So thank you so much. And one final plug, Mr. Ellis, if you don't mind, here in Montgomery County, I did want to say we have something called the Black Physicians Healthcare Network. I'm a part of that, and they are looking to underfund it. So I'm going to ask all my embracers here on the Embrace You Hot Topics show if you would head on over to the website and sign the petition so that we get the funding, so that we can connect more people with more Black people with culturally competent doctors that get it as well. So thank you, and thank you, Pascale.
You're
I can't
welcome.
wait to see you
Bye,
this month.
everybody.
See you in April in New York at OMA. Yay.
Yes, we'll be there.
Take care. See you. Bye. All right, baby girl's coming in.